Maya! The name tore from his throat, lost in the roar of Atlanta's airport as Henry Caldwell stood frozen, a ghost of his past staring back. 10 years ago, he'd abandoned her, stolen their savings, left her drowning in debt, unaware of the child she carried. Now, Maya Jackson, radiant and unbroken, held the hand of a boy whose hazel eyes mirrored Henry's own, a son he'd never known. Shock gripped him, his heart pounding with regret for the life he'd shattered. What had he done? And how had she risen from the ashes he'd left behind? Today's story unveils a journey of betrayal, resilience, and a woman's unyielding spirit. Will the past reclaim her, or has Maya forged a future too strong to break? Dive in, but don't miss a moment. Subscribe to our channel for the latest tales that touch the heart, and share in the comments where you're listening from. What secrets lie in Maya's transformation? Stick with us to find out. The late June sun dipped low over Atlanta's sprawling suburbs, casting a golden glow across the manicured lawns of Peachtree Lane. In a charming craftsman home, its porch adorned with blooming azaleas, Maya Jackson stood in her kitchen, the heart of what she believed was a perfect life. The scent of her signature cornbread muffins wafted from the oven, mingling with the faint jasmine breeze slipping through the open window. At 32, Maya, a radiant black woman with deep brown eyes and a smile that could warm the coldest room, poured her soul into this home, this marriage, this dream. Her husband, Henry Caldwell, a handsome white man with a disarming grin and a pedigree from a well-to-do Buckhead family, had been her everything since they met 6 years ago at a community fundraiser. Henry had swept her off her feet with grand promises, weekend escapes to Savannah's cobblestone streets, whispered vows of a future filled with love and security. "We'll build something unbreakable, Maya," he'd said, his hazel eyes locking with hers as they danced under the stars. Maya, then a rising star at a local community college, believed him with every fiber of her being. She saw in him not just a partner, but a shared vision of a life rooted in trust and devotion. Their home was a testament to that vision. Framed photos lined the living room mantel. Maya and Henry laughing on Tybee Island, their wedding day with Maya in a flowing ivory gown, Henry's arm protectively around her. She'd tended the garden back, coaxing roses and hydrangeas into vibrant life, much like she nurtured their marriage. As the college's community outreach coordinator, Maya poured her heart into helping students find their path, but her true sanctuary was here, with Henry, in the life they'd built. Yet, as the months ticked by, shadows crept into their paradise. Henry, once attentive and full of charm, grew distant. His late nights at the law firm, where he was climbing the ranks as a corporate attorney, became more frequent, his explanations vaguer. "Just a big case, sweetheart," he'd say, brushing off her questions with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He'd slip out for client dinners without inviting her, his phone buzzing incessantly, always angled out of her sight. Maya, ever the optimist, chalked it up to stress. She doubled down on love, planning candlelit dinners, leaving notes in his briefcase, hoping to rekindle the spark that once burned so brightly. But the unease grew, a quiet hum beneath her daily routine. She'd catch Henry staring into space, his jaw tight, as if wrestling with a secret. His laughter, once a melody that filled their home, was replaced by clipped responses. Maya tried to bridge the gap, her voice soft as she asked, "Is everything okay, Henry? You seem far away." He waved her away, emphasizing, "It's nothing, Maya, it's just business." She wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. So she buries her doubts, tends to the garden, works, and hopes that love can weather any storm. Tonight, as the cornbread baked and cicadas hummed outside, Maya set the table for two, determined to reclaim their connection. She was wearing her favorite sundress, which Henry said made her look like a summer sunrise. The clock ticked past 7, then 8. Henry was late again. She texted him, her fingers hesitating over the keys. "Dinner's ready. Can't wait to see you." No reply. The muffins cooled, their warmth fading like her resolve. When the front door finally creaked open at 9:30, Henry strode in, his tie loosened, his face etched with exhaustion. Or was it something else? "Sorry, Maya," he muttered, barely glancing at her as he tossed his briefcase onto the couch. "Got held up at the office." His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he silenced it quickly, too quickly, his eyes darting away from hers. Maya's heart clenched, but she forced a smile. "I made your favorite," she said, gesturing to the table. "Sit with me, we haven't talked in ages." Henry sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I'm beat, Maya. Can we do this tomorrow?" He walked toward the stairs, but there was something about his haste, the way he clutched his phone, the way he avoided her eyes that made her impatient. "Henry, wait," she called, her voice sharper than she intended. He froze, one hand on the banister. "What's going on? You're never here anymore. You don't talk to me. I'm trying, but I can't do this alone." Her words trembled, raw with the fear she'd kept at bay. He turned, his expression a mix of irritation and guilt. "I told you, it's work. Why do you always make a big deal out of nothing?" The edge in his voice stung, but it was the lie in his eyes that cut deeper. Maya stepped closer, her pulse racing. "Don't lie to me, Henry. I deserve the truth." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Then his phone buzzed again, and before he could stop her, Maya reached for it, her fingers brushing the screen. A notification flashed. "Claire, miss you already. Call me." The name hit like a punch, stealing her breath. Claire, a woman's name, laced with intimacy that didn't belong in their marriage. "Henry." Her voice cracked, her eyes searching his for an explanation, for anything to make. This moment unreal. He snatched the phone back, his face paling. "It's not what you think," he stammered, but the panic in his voice betrayed him. "Maya, just let it go." "Let it go?" she whispered, tears burning her eyes. "You're texting another woman, Henry. Who is she?" Her hands trembled, the room spinning as the life she'd built crumbled in real time. Henry opened his mouth, then closed it, his silence louder than any confession. The cornbread sat, untouched, the candles flickering out one by one. Maya stood rooted to the spot, her heart a battlefield of love and betrayal. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but fear held her back. Fear of shattering the fragile hope that maybe she'd misunderstood. Henry muttered something about needing a shower and fled upstairs, leaving her alone in the dim kitchen. That night, Maya lay awake in their bed, Henry's steady breathing beside her a cruel mockery of intimacy. The text replayed in her mind, each word a dagger. "Miss you already." She stared at the ceiling, tears slipping silently into her pillow. The man she loved, the life she cherished, was slipping away, and she didn't know how to hold on. All she knew was the weight of love, once her strength, now her heaviest burden, pressing down, threatening to break her. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, Maya clung to a single, desperate thought. She wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. The Atlanta summer pressed down on Peachtree Lane, thick with humidity and the drone of cicadas. But inside Maya Jackson's Craftsman home, the air was colder, emptier. 3 weeks had passed since the night she'd glimpsed the damning text on Henry's phone. "Claire, miss you already." And the silence between them had hardened into a wall. Maya, her deep brown eyes shadowed with sleepless nights, clung to the routines that once anchored her, tending her rose garden, grading student proposals at the community college, setting the table for dinners Henry no longer attended. But hope, her faithful companion, was fraying, and the truth she'd feared was about to obliterate her world. It began on a Tuesday morning, the kind of ordinary day that shouldn't end in ruin. Maya woke to an empty bed, Henry's side untouched, his absence no longer a surprise. She'd stopped asking where he went, stopped texting, stopped begging for the truth. Downstairs, she brewed coffee, the gurgle of the machine a hollow echo in the quiet house. As she reached for her mug, her eyes caught something on the kitchen counter, a single sheet of paper folded neatly, her name scrawled in Henry's sharp handwriting. Her heart lurched, a mix of dread and curiosity pulling her forward. She unfolded the note, her fingers trembling. "Maya, I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. I've left. Don't try to find me. Henry." The words hit like a physical blow, knocking the air from her lungs. She read it again, then again, as if repetition could rewrite the reality. Left? Left where? Her gaze darted around the kitchen, seeking proof this was a mistake. The photos on the mantel, the azaleas outside, the life they'd built, it couldn't just vanish. But the house felt different now, its warmth drained, its silence suffocating. Panic surged, and Maya ran upstairs, flinging open Henry's closet. Empty hangers stared back, his suits gone, his shoes missing. She tore through drawers, finding only traces of him, a stray cufflink, a forgotten sock. Her breath came in gasps as she stumbled to the study where their financial files were kept. The safe, usually locked, gaped open, its contents gutted. Bank statements, investment records, their shared savings, gone. A quick check online confirmed the worst. Their joint accounts were drained, leaving a balance of $12.43. Worse, a stack of unpaid bills, mortgage, utilities, credit cards, lay scattered on the desk, some marked past due in angry red ink. Henry hadn't just left her. He'd stolen their future and saddled her with his debts. Maya sank to the floor, the note crumpled in her fist. Betrayal burned through her, hot and raw, but it was the image of Claire, the faceless woman from the text that seared her mind. Henry hadn't just abandoned her. He'd chosen someone else, someone who'd lured him away from the vows he'd sworn under Savannah's starry skies. Tears came, not gentle but wrenching, as she curled into herself, the hardwood cold against her cheek. The man she'd loved, the life she'd cherished, was a lie. Days blurred into a haze of disbelief. Maya called Henry's phone, only to hear the robotic number disconnected message. She drove to his law firm, her sundress wrinkled, her face bare of makeup, only to be told by a tight-lipped receptionist that Mr. Caldwell had resigned abruptly. Colleagues avoided her eyes, their pity worse than scorn. Back home, the mailbox overflowed with collection notices, each one a reminder of Henry's betrayal. The mortgage was 3 months behind, and the car loan was delinquent. Maya, once the picture of resilience, felt like a ghost haunting her own life. Then came the second blow. A week after Henry's disappearance, Maya sat in her bathroom, staring at a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines glared back, unmistakable. She was pregnant. The realization should have brought joy, but instead it crushed her. A child, Henry's child, growing inside her, tying her forever to the man who'd shattered her. She clutched the test, her sobs echoing off the tiles, the weight of motherhood alone overwhelming her. How could she raise a child with no money, no job security, and no partner? The dream of a family, once so vivid, now felt like a curse. The world outside her home turned crueler still. At the community college, whispers followed her down the halls. "Did you hear? Her husband ran off with some woman," a co-worker murmured, loud enough for Maya to hear. Guess she wasn't enough to keep him. Neighbors, once friendly, now cast sidelong glances, their conversations halting when she passed. At a grocery store, an old friend from church, Mrs. Ellis, clucked her tongue. "You should have known, Maya. A man like Henry, too good for—" She trailed off, but the implication hung heavy. Too good for a woman like you. The judgment, laced with assumptions about her race, her worth, cut deeper than Maya could bear. She abandoned her cart, fleeing to her car where she sat, hands shaking, shame swallowing her whole. Her job, her last bastion of stability, began to crumble. The college, facing budget cuts, scrutinized her performance. Henry's debts had tied her name to late payments, and creditors hounded her at work, their calls disrupting meetings. Her supervisor, a stern woman named Dr. Hargrove, called her in on a muggy afternoon. "Maya, your issues are affecting your work," she said, her tone clipped. "We can't afford distractions." Maya pleaded, explaining Henry's betrayal. But Dr. Hargrove's eyes were cold. Sort it out, or we'll have to let you go. That evening, a termination letter arrived via email, citing unreliability. Maya stared at the screen, numb. Her career, her identity as an educator, was gone. By the end of the month, Maya was a stranger in her own life. The house, once a sanctuary, loomed like a prison, its unpaid bills a noose around her neck. She sat on the living room floor, surrounded by photos of happier times, Henry's arm around her, their smiles frozen in a lie. The baby inside her, barely a whisper of life, was her only tether to hope, yet it terrified her. She was alone, broke, and pregnant, with no job and no one to turn to. The community that once embraced her now mocked her fall, their voices a chorus of blame. She should have seen it coming. She wasn't enough. As dusk painted the sky in hues of bruised purple, Maya pressed a hand to her stomach, tears streaming down her face. The weight of betrayal, debt, and impending motherhood pressed down, threatening to bury her. She didn't know where to go, what to do, or how to survive. All she knew was that her world had shattered, and the pieces were too sharp to pick up. In the quiet of her empty home, Maya whispered to the child she carried, "I don't know how, but I'll find a way." It was a promise born of desperation, a fragile thread in the darkness, as she faced a future she could no longer imagine. The August heat clung to Atlanta like a second skin, the air thick with the scent of rain that refused to fall. Maya Jackson's craftsman home on Peachtree Lane, once a beacon of love, now felt like a mausoleum, its walls echoing with the ghosts of Henry's betrayal. 6 weeks had passed since he'd vanished, taking their savings and leaving her with a mountain of debt and the shattering news of her pregnancy. Fired from her job at the community college, shunned by neighbors who whispered her failure, Maya was a shadow of the vibrant woman she'd been. Her rose garden wilted, untended, and her mirrors went uncovered, unable to bear the sight of her own hollow eyes. Yet within her a faint pulse of life, her unborn child, stirred, a silent plea to keep going. This morning, Maya sat on her living room floor, surrounded by eviction notices and collection letters, their red ink screaming urgency. The phone rang incessantly, creditors demanding payments she couldn't make. Her savings were gone, her credit ruined, and the mortgage loomed like a guillotine. She pressed a hand to her stomach, whispering, "I'm trying, little one." But the words felt empty. Despair had become her companion, its weight heavier than the humid air. She needed an escape, a lifeline, something to remind her of who she used to be before Henry's lies tore her apart. A memory flickered. Hope Haven, the orphanage in East Atlanta where she'd spent years volunteering, donating her time and money to children who'd lost as much as she had. It was a place of color and chaos, where laughter drowned out pain, where she'd once felt purpose. Maybe there, among those resilient souls, she could find a piece of herself. With trembling hands, she grabbed her keys, ignoring the unpaid bills, and drove across town, the radio off, her thoughts a storm of doubt and longing. Hope Haven's faded sign greeted her, its playground a riot of primary colors under the gray sky. The low brick building, adorned with children's murals, stars, rockets, smiling faces, stood as a defiant island of joy in a weary world. Maya parked, her heart pounding, unsure if she belonged here anymore. Her sundress hung loosely, her face bare of makeup, her curls pulled into a haphazard bun. She stepped out, the gravel crunching under her flats, and hesitated at the gate. What if they saw her brokenness, her failure? But the sound of children's laughter, bright and unyielding, pulled her forward. The moment she crossed the threshold, the world shifted. "Miss Maya!" A chorus of voices erupted, and a swarm of children, brown, black, white, all beaming, rushed toward her. Tiny hands tugged at her dress, pulling her into their orbit. A boy with gap teeth thrust a crayon drawing into her hands, a lopsided sun with her name scrawled beneath it. "I made this for you," he declared, his pride infectious. A girl, with braids no older than 8, hugged her waist, babbling about her dream to be a pilot. Their energy, their trust, was a balm to Maya's battered spirit. For the first time in weeks, she smiled, tentative but real, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. The children led her to the common room, a sunlit space cluttered with books, toys, and mismatched chairs. They sprawled around her, demanding stories, showing off their treasures. A plastic dinosaur, a glittery hair clip. Maya listened, her heart thawing as they shared their dreams. I want to be a chef. I'm going to build spaceships. Their resilience, despite their losses, was a mirror to the strength she'd forgotten she possessed. She read them a picture. Book. Her voice unsteady at first, then stronger, their giggles urging her on. In their eyes, she wasn't the woman abandoned by Henry, mocked by neighbors, or fired from her job. She was Miss Maya, their hero, their friend. A small girl, maybe 6, with wide eyes and a faded pink dress, climbed into Maya's lap. Her name was Lila, a quiet child Maya remembered from past visits. Lila's fingers traced Maya's arm, then rested on her stomach, gentle as a whisper. You got a baby in there, don't you? She asked, her voice soft but certain. Maya froze, her breath catching. She hadn't told anyone, hadn't even spoken the word pregnant aloud. How did you know? She whispered, her voice thick. Lila smiled, a wisdom beyond her years in her gaze. I just know. Your baby's gonna be a lucky angel, Miss Maya. They got you. The words pierced Maya's heart, unraveling the knot of fear and shame she'd carried. Tears spilled over, hot and silent, as she hugged Lila close, the girl's small frame anchoring her to this moment. Lucky. The word felt foreign, impossible, yet it sparked something deep within, a flicker of hope, fragile, but alive. These children, with their unscarred dreams, saw her not as broken but as whole, capable, worthy. For the first time since Henry's note, Maya felt the stirrings of belief in herself. Across the room, James Thornton, the orphanage's director, watched quietly. A tall man in his early 40s with warm brown skin and a presence that commanded respect, James was a philanthropist whose wealth funded Hope Haven's mission. He'd known Maya for years, admiring her generosity and the way she connected with the children. Today, though, he saw something new, a woman battered by life yet still radiating strength. As Maya laughed with the kids, wiping her tears, James's heart stirred. Her resilience, even in pain, was a quiet force, one he couldn't ignore. Iggy approached as the children dispersed for lunch, their chatter fading down the hall. Maya, he said, his voice low, steady. It's been a while, it's good to see you. His eyes held hers, searching, and Maya felt a flush of vulnerability. Did he see her exhaustion, her desperation? But his smile was kind, devoid of pity. The kids missed you. You've always had a gift with them. Maya ducked her head, clutching Lila's drawing. I missed them too. This place, it's the only thing that feels right anymore. Her voice cracked, betraying the weight she carried. James nodded, as if he understood more than she'd said. You look like you could use a coffee, he offered, gesturing to his office. She hesitated, then followed, grateful for the distraction. In his cluttered office, surrounded by photos of Hope Haven's kids, James poured her a mug, his movements deliberate. They talked, small things at first, the kids' latest antics, the new mural outside. But his quiet presence coaxed her guard down, and she found herself admitting, life's been hard lately. She didn't elaborate, couldn't yet. But James didn't press. Instead, he leaned forward, his voice earnest. Maya, you're one of the strongest people I know. These kids light up around you. We could use someone like you here, teaching, inspiring. If you want it, there is a job for you, a literacy teacher. That job is yours. The offer stunned her. A job, a purpose, a chance to rebuild. Her eyes welled up again, but this time they were tears of gratitude. James, I don't know what to say. He smiled, a spark of something deeper in his gaze. Say yes. You belong here. As Maya nodded, a weight lifted. Not all of it, but enough to breathe. Hope Haven, with its chaos and love, had given her a lifeline. She wasn't healed, not yet. But for the first time, she saw a path forward, lit by the children's dreams and a stranger's faith in her. As she left, Lila's words echoed, "A lucky angel." Maybe, just maybe, she could be that for her child and herself. September's first cool breeze swept through Atlanta, whispering change across the weathered playground of Hope Haven Orphanage. For Maya Jackson, the air carried more than autumn's promise. It bore the scent of a new beginning. 2 months had passed since her world crumbled under Henry's betrayal, leaving her pregnant, penniless, and shunned. The Craftsman home on Peachtree Lane, now a battleground of unpaid bills and looming foreclosure, stood as a relic of her past. Yet within the colorful chaos of Hope Haven, Maya was piecing herself back together, one small victory at a time. The literacy teaching job offered by James Thornton, the orphanage's director, had become her lifeline, and she clung to it with a ferocity she hadn't known she possessed. Each morning, Maya arrived at Hope Haven before dawn, her worn flats crunching on the gravel path. The orphanage, with its mural-splashed walls and cacophony of children's voices, was a stark contrast to the silence of her empty home. She'd taken to wearing her hair in neat braids, a small act of reclaiming herself, though her eyes still carried the weight of sleepless nights. The children, oblivious to her struggles, greeted her with uncontained joy. "Miss Maya, look at my book," cried Jamal, a 7-year-old with a lopsided grin, thrusting a dog-eared copy of The Magic Treehouse into her hands. Lila, the quiet girl who'd called her baby a lucky angel, trailed her like a shadow, slipping drawings under her door. Their trust, their need for her, was a tether pulling Maya from the abyss. Her classroom, a cozy corner of the common room lined with bookshelves and mismatched rugs, became her sanctuary. She taught the children to read, guiding their small fingers over words, celebrating each stumbled syllable. "Sound it out, Tasha," she'd say, her voice patient as a girl with pigtails tackled cat and hat. The kids' progress lit a spark in Maya, rekindling the passion she'd lost when the community college fired her. She designed reading games, paired older kids with younger ones, and read aloud with a flair that turned stories into adventures. The children hung on her every word, their laughter a melody that drowned out the creditor's calls echoing in her mind. Beyond the classroom, Maya threw herself into Hope Haven's daily rhythm. She organized story hours, helped with meals, and even joined the kids in painting a new mural, a vibrant tree bursting with stars. The work was exhausting, her pregnancy adding a quiet ache to her days, but it was also exhilarating. For the first time since Henry's note, "I've left, don't try to find me," Maya felt useful, needed, alive. The children saw her not as the woman abandoned and mocked, but as Miss Maya, who made words dance and dreams feel possible. Their love was a mirror, reflecting a strength she'd forgotten she owned. Hope Haven itself began to transform under her touch. Maya's reading program drew attention, with more children mastering books each week. She proposed a community story night, inviting parents and locals to hear the kids read aloud, and the event packed the common room, its walls ringing with applause. Volunteers noticed the shift. Bookshelves grew fuller, the playground cleaner, the kids prouder. Maya's ideas, once confined to college proposals, now breathed life into this scrappy oasis. She worked late, sketching plans by lamplight, her exhaustion tempered by a growing belief that she could make a difference, that she was making a difference. James Thornton watched her closely, his admiration deepening with each passing day. A man of quiet intensity, his wealth and vision had built Hope Haven, but it was Maya's fire that was setting it ablaze. He'd stopped by her classroom, leaning against the doorframe, a faint smile playing on his lips as she animated a story for wide-eyed kids. Their conversations, once limited to logistics, grew longer, richer. Over coffee in his cluttered office, they debated teaching methods, shared stories of the children, and tiptoed around the edges of her pain. "You're changing this place, Maya," James said one evening, his voice warm with conviction. "You're changing them." She blushed, deflecting, but his words lodged in her heart, a reminder that she was more than her losses. Yet, the shadow of her past lingered. At night, in the silence of her home, Maya faced the reality of her crumbling finances. The bank had sent a foreclosure notice, giving her 90 days to pay or lose the house. Creditors called relentlessly, their threats a drumbeat of fear. Her pregnancy, now in its second trimester, brought nausea and fatigue, a constant reminder of the child she'd raise alone. She hid these struggles from Hope Haven, pasting on a smile for the kids, but James sensed her burden. He never pried, but his small gestures, bringing her lunch, insisting she take breaks, spoke of a care that both comforted and unnerved her. Trust, after Henry, felt like a ledge she wasn't ready to step onto. One crisp afternoon, as leaves skittered across the playground, Maya sat with Lila under the mural tree, helping her read a simple story. The girl's halting words, her triumphant grin at finishing a page, filled Maya with a pride fiercer than any she'd known. "You're so smart, Lila," she said, hugging her close. Lila beamed, then whispered, "You make me feel smart, Miss Maya." The moment cracked something open in Maya, a realization that this work, these children, was rebuilding her from the inside out. She wasn't just surviving, she was rising, her ashes giving way to something new. James approached as Lila scampered off, his eyes bright with an idea. "Maya, I've been thinking," he said, sitting beside her on the bench. "Your reading program, it's extraordinary. I want you to lead a bigger initiative, a literacy hub for all our kids, maybe even the community. I'll fund it, whatever you need." His faith in her was a jolt, both thrilling and daunting. "James, I'm not sure I'm ready for that," she admitted, her voice low. "My life's a mess right now." He tilted his head, his gaze steady. "Your life's a fight, Maya, and you're winning it. Let me help you." The offer hung between them, a bridge to a future she could almost see. Maya's heart raced, torn between fear and possibility. She thought of her baby, of the children, of the woman she was becoming. "I'll think about it," she said finally, a small smile breaking through. James nodded, a spark of something deeper, admiration, perhaps more, flickering in his eyes. As he walked away, Maya looked at the mural tree, its painted stars gleaming against the dusk. Hope Haven had given her a purpose, a place to belong. She wasn't whole yet, but she was rising, her roots sinking deeper into this sacred ground, ready to grow. October's golden light bathed Atlanta, painting the Hope Haven orphanage in hues of amber and promise. For Maya Jackson, the crisp air felt like a new chapter, a far cry from the suffocating despair that had gripped her 5 months ago, when Henry's betrayal stripped her of home, savings, and dignity. Now, pregnant and fiercely determined, Maya was no longer the broken woman who'd stumbled into Hope Haven seeking solace. The orphanage, with its vibrant murals and irrepressible children, had become her crucible, forging her into someone stronger, someone who dared to dream again. Her literacy program had transformed the children's lives, and her leadership was breathing new life into the orphanage. Yet, beneath her growing confidence, a quiet question lingered. Could she open her heart to something or someone new? Maya's days at Hope Haven were a whirlwind of purpose. Her classroom buzzed with activity as children pored over books, their voices weaving a tapestry of discovery. Jamal, the gap-toothed 7-year-old, now read entire chapters aloud, his pride a mirror to Maya's own. Lila, the quiet girl who'd called her baby a lucky angel, wrote her first story, a tale of a brave girl who flew to the stars. Maya celebrated each milestone, her heart swelling with a maternal love that extended beyond the child growing within her. Her pregnancy, now in its 3rd trimester, was a gentle weight, a reminder of the future she was fighting for. She wore Loose blouses to hide her bump, not out of shame, but to keep her focus on the children, not her story. Her influence rippled beyond the classroom. The literacy hub James Thornton had proposed was taking shape, with Maya at its helm. She'd named it Empower Haven, a program to teach reading not just to Hope Haven's kids, but to struggling families in East Atlanta. Maya spent late nights drafting plans, securing donations, and training volunteers, her exhaustion tempered by a fire she hadn't felt since her college days. Community story nights drew crowds, with parents marveling at their children's progress. Local newspapers ran features on Empower Haven, calling Maya a beacon of change. She deflected the praise, crediting the kids, but deep down she felt her worth taking root, a stark contrast to the scorn she'd endured after Henry's abandonment. James was her steadfast ally, his belief in her unwavering. The orphanage director, with his calm strength and deep brown eyes, was a constant presence, reviewing her proposals, securing grants, cheering at story nights. Their partnership had grown into a rhythm, their conversations stretching from work to dreams over coffee in his cluttered office. Maya admired his dedication, the way he listened to the children's smallest worries, the way he saw Hope Haven as a family, not just a charity. But there was something else in his gaze lately, a warmth that quickened her pulse and stirred memories of a trust she'd sworn never to offer again. One evening, as dusk settled over Hope Haven, Maya and James worked late, finalizing plans for Empower Haven's first citywide literacy fair. The common room was quiet, the children long gone to bed, leaving only the hum of crickets outside. String lights from a recent event still hung above, casting a soft glow over their papers. Maya, her braids swept into a high bun, rubbed her tired eyes, her pregnancy making every hour feel heavier. "We're doing this, aren't we?" she said, half laughing as she scanned a list of sponsors. "A year ago, I couldn't imagine any of this." James leaned back in his chair, his smile gentle but piercing. "You're making it happen, Maya. You're not just teaching kids to read, you're giving them hope. You're giving us hope." His voice held a weight that made her look up, her breath catching at the intensity in his eyes. She fidgeted with a pen, suddenly aware of the quiet, the closeness. "I'm just doing my job," she murmured, deflecting, but James shook his head. "No, Maya, you're rebuilding a community. You're rebuilding yourself. I see it every day, the way you fight, the way you love these kids. It's extraordinary." His words landed like a stone in still water, rippling through her defenses. Maya's throat tightened, the memory of Henry's lies. "We'll build something unbreakable," flashing in her mind. She wanted to believe James, to lean into his faith, but fear held her back, a scar from a wound still raw. The moment stretched, charged with unspoken possibilities. James reached across the table, his hand brushing hers, a touch so brief yet electric it stole her breath. "Maya," he said softly, "I've been wanting to say this for a while. You're the strongest person I know, and not just because of what you do here, because of who you are. I want to be part of your life, not just your work. If you'll me." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a vulnerability, a hope that mirrored her own. Maya froze, her heart a battlefield of longing and caution. James wasn't Henry. His actions, his care proved that. But trust was a leap she hadn't taken since her world shattered. She thought of her baby, due in 3 months, of the life she was building for them at Hope Haven. Could she risk her heart again? "James, she started, her voice trembling. "I've been hurt before badly. I don't know if I'm ready." Her honesty hung between them, raw and unguarded. He nodded, his hand retreating, but his gaze unwavering. "I understand. I'm not going anywhere, Maya. I'll wait as long as it takes." His sincerity was a lifeline, a promise that didn't demand but offered. She felt a tear slip down her cheek, not from pain but from the possibility of something new, something real. She wiped it away, offering a small smile. "Thank you," she whispered, the words carrying more weight than she could say. The literacy fair, held a week later under a canopy of autumn leaves, was a triumph. Hundreds gathered in Hope Haven's courtyard, where children read their stories to cheers, and families signed up for Empower Haven's classes. Maya moved through the crowd, radiant in a mustard yellow dress that hugged her growing belly, her laughter mingling with the kids. James watched from afar, helping with logistics but stealing glances that made her heart skip. When Lila read her Stargirl story to a teary-eyed audience, Maya hugged her, whispering, "You're my star too." The moment felt like a vow, to the children, to herself, to the future. As the fair wound down, Maya stood under the string lights watching families leave with books and smiles. James joined her, his shoulder brushing hers. "You did this," he said, his voice proud. She looked at him, seeing not just a partner but a man who saw her, scars and all. "We did this," she corrected, her smile tentative but open. That moment, Maya felt the stirrings of love. Not the blind passion of her past, but a resilient, rooted kind, born of shared purpose and quiet faith. She wasn't ready to leap, not yet, but she was ready to step closer, to let hope guide her toward a future where love could bloom again. The late summer of 2035 hummed with life at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, its terminals a whirlwind of travelers and fleeting reunions. Maya Jackson, now 42, moved through the crowd with a grace that turned heads, her deep brown eyes alight with purpose. Beside her, her 9-year-old son Ethan clutched her hand, his hazel eyes eerily, reminiscent of his father's, sparkling as he chattered about his latest art project. Maya's braids were swept into an elegant updo, her tailored blazer and skirt a testament to the woman she'd become. A leader, a mother, a force. 10 years after Henry Caldwell's betrayal had left her broken, pregnant, and alone, Maya had risen from the ashes, her Empower Haven initiative transforming lives across Atlanta. With James Thornton, her partner in work and heart, she'd built a life of meaning, one she never imagined possible in those dark days of 2025. But the past has a way of clawing its way back, and it found her in Gate B12, where Henry Caldwell stood frozen, a suitcase slipping from his grip. At 45, Henry was a shadow of the charming lawyer who'd once promised Maya the world. His dark hair was streaked with gray, his tailored suit ill-fitting, his face etched with the weariness of a man who'd chased empty dreams. He'd come to Atlanta on a whim, chasing a business deal that had already soured, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight of Maya. She was radiant, her laughter as she knelt to tie Ethan's shoe, a melody he'd long forgotten. The mice boy beside her, with his familiar eyes and lopsided grin, was a punch to Henry's gut, a living echo of the life he'd abandoned. Henry's heart raced, shame and longing warring within him. He remembered the note he'd left. "I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore." And the woman he'd fled with, Claire, who'd promised glamour but delivered only fleeting thrills. Their affair had fizzled within a year, leaving Henry to drift through failed ventures and hollow relationships. Now, seeing Maya, so vibrant, so whole, he felt the weight of his mistakes like a stone in his chest. And the boy, could he be his son? The thought was a lightning bolt, igniting a desperate need to know, to atone, to reclaim what he'd thrown away. Maya, oblivious to Henry's gaze, guided Ethan toward their flight to a literacy conference in Chicago where she'd speak about Empower Haven. As they moved toward the gate, Henry stumbled forward, his voice hoarse. "Maya!" he called. But the airport's din swallowed his cry. She boarded the plane, Ethan's hand in hers, and Henry watched, helpless, as they disappeared. His knees buckled, and he sank into a chair, the terminal blurring through tears. He'd lost, her once by choice. Now, fate had dangled her before him, only to snatch her away again. Driven by regret, Henry turned to old contacts, piecing together Maya's life like a man possessed. A former colleague, now a journalist, filled in the gaps over coffee in Midtown. "Maya Jackson? She's a legend," the man said, sliding a tablet across the table. Articles glowed with her achievements. Empower Haven scholarships for single mothers, literacy programs in underserved schools, and her TED Talk on resilience. Photos showed her at galas, radiant beside a tall, poised man. James Thornton, the philanthropist behind Hope Haven. Henry's stomach twisted, jealousy flaring at the sight of James's arm around her, a role that should have been his. The journalist mentioned Ethan, her son, born months after Henry left, and the math was undeniable. Ethan was his. Henry drove to East Atlanta, his rental car weaving through streets he'd once called home. Hope Haven's colorful sign loomed, its playground alive with children. He parked across the street, watching from behind tinted windows as Maya emerged, a stack of books in her arms, her laughter carried on the breeze. She was more beautiful than he remembered, her strength a quiet fire. Ethan ran to her, showing off a drawing, and Henry's heart clenched. The boy was his spitting image at that age, down to the way he tilted his head. Guilt choked him, guilt for the money he'd stolen, the debts he'd left, the child he'd never known. For days, Henry haunted Hope Haven's periphery, a ghost stalking his past. He learned Maya's routine, mornings teaching, afternoons planning, evenings with James and Ethan. He saw her speak at a community event, her voice commanding, her words about overcoming pain slicing through him. "We are not our scars," she said to a rapt crowd. "We are what we build from them." Henry, hidden in the back, felt every word as a verdict on his cowardice. He'd built nothing but regrets, while Maya had crafted a legacy. Finally, he could wait no longer. On a humid Thursday, as Maya locked up Hope Haven's office, Henry stepped from the shadows, his throat dry. "Maya," he said, his voice a cracked whisper. She froze, her keys clattering to the ground. Her eyes, once soft with love, now blazed with recognition and steel. "Henry," she said, her tone flat, a shield against the storm he'd unleashed. A decade ago, the air between them crackled, heavy with unspoken history. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, stepping back, her arms crossed. Henry faltered, his rehearsed speech crumbling. "I saw you at the airport. With Ethan. Maya, I didn't know. I'm so sorry." His voice broke, but Maya's face was stone. "Sorry," she repeated, her laugh bitter. "You stole everything. Our money, our home, my trust. You left me with nothing but debts and a baby I didn't know how to raise. And now you're sorry?" Henry flinched, her words a lash. "I was wrong, Maya. I was a fool. Claire, she was a mistake. I've regretted it every day." He stepped closer, desperate. "Ethan, he's mine, isn't he? Let me make this right. Let me be part of his life." Maya's eyes narrowed, her body rigid with fury. "You don't get to claim him," she said, her voice low, lethal. "Ethan is my son. I fought for him, bled for him while you ran. You have no right to him, to us." The confrontation drew curious glances from passing volunteers, but Maya didn't care. She stepped forward, her presence towering despite her smaller frame. "I rebuilt my life, Henry, without you. I don't need your apologies or your guilt. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of." Her words were a blade, cutting through his hopes. Henry's face crumpled, tears welling. "Please, Maya. I've lost everything. Give me a chance." Maya's resolve wavered for a fleeting moment, not from longing but from pity, a flicker for the broken man before her. But pity wasn't forgiveness. "You lost me 10 years ago," she said, her voice steady now. "You don't get to walk back into my world because you're lonely. I have a family, a purpose, a life. You're not part of it." She turned, picking up her keys, and walked away, her back straight, her heart pounding but unbroken. Henry stood rooted, the weight of her rejection crushing him. He watched her disappear into Hope Haven, the place she'd made her own, and knew he'd lost her forever. The boy, his son, was a stranger he'd never known. As dusk fell, Henry drove away, his car swallowed by Atlanta's sprawl. His regrets, a shadow he'd carry alone. Maya, inside, leaned against the office door, her breath ragged. The past had returned, but it hadn't claimed her. She was free, her future hers to shape, with Ethan and James by her side. The autumn of 2035 draped Atlanta in a tapestry of crimson and gold, its crisp air carrying whispers of renewal. For Maya Jackson, the season mirrored her transformation. At 42, she stood as a pillar of strength, her deep brown eyes reflecting a decade of battles won. The scars of Henry Caldwell's betrayal, his theft of their savings, the debts, the abandonment when she was pregnant with Ethan had faded into the background, replaced by a life forged in resilience. Hope Haven Orphanage, once her refuge, was now her kingdom, where her Empower Haven initiative empowered countless lives. With her 9-year-old son, Ethan, and James Thornton, her partner in love and mission, Maya had built a family rooted in trust. Yet Henry's brief return at the airport weeks ago had stirred old ghosts, reminding her how far she'd come, and how much she still had to claim. Maya's days were a symphony of purpose. Empower Haven had grown beyond Hope Haven's walls, its literacy programs and scholarships for single mothers earning national acclaim. She traveled to conferences, and her TED Talk on resilience has been viewed millions of times online. In Atlanta, she was a beacon, her story of rising from betrayal, inspiring women to reclaim their own lives. At Hope Haven, she mentored volunteers, taught children to read, and planned community events. Her braids often pinned up, her smile a quiet force. Ethan, now a budding artist, thrived under her care, his sketches of stars and cities adorning. Her office, James, steady and devoted, was her anchor, their late-night talks weaving dreams of a shared future. But Maya's past lingered, not as pain but as a challenge to fully embrace her worth. Henry's plea for forgiveness had been a test, one she'd passed by, choosing herself over his guilt. Now she sought to redefine her identity, not as a survivor of betrayal, but as a creator of change. Empower Haven's latest project, a job, training center for women escaping abusive relationships, consumed her. She poured her heart into it, seeing her younger self in every woman who walked through its doors. "You are enough," she told them, her voice firm, echoing the words she'd needed a decade ago. The center's opening, set for November, was her boldest step yet, a declaration that her pain had birthed a legacy. One overcast morning, Maya stood before a crowd at a downtown Atlanta rally, her mustard yellow coat bright against the gray sky. Hundreds gathered, women holding signs that read, "We Rise and Empower Haven." Her speech, delivered with a preacher's cadence, electrified the air. "I was left with nothing, no money, no job, a baby on the way," she said, her voice carrying over the murmurs. "But I learned this: our pain is not our end. It's our beginning. You are not your scars. You are what you build from them." The crowd roared, their applause a tidal wave. Maya's eyes met Ethan's in the front row, his grin wide, a sketchbook clutched to his chest. James stood beside him, his pride palpable. In that moment, Maya felt whole, her past no longer a weight but a foundation. Back at Hope Haven, the children were her heartbeat. Lila, now 10, wrote stories Maya bound into books, her Stargirl tales a favorite at story nights. Jamal, the gap-toothed reader, led younger kids in reading circles, mimicking Maya's patient tone. She saw herself in their resilience, their dreams untainted by loss. One afternoon, as she helped Ethan paint a mural, a soaring phoenix for the job training center, he asked, "Mom, are you famous now?" His hazel eyes, so like Henry's yet so uniquely his own, sparkled with curiosity. Maya laughed, brushing paint from his cheek. "Not famous, baby. Just trying to make a difference." Ethan nodded, his seriousness melting her heart. "You're my hero," he said, and Maya hugged him, tears pricking her eyes. His love was her greatest triumph. James's role in her life deepened, their bond a quiet fire. He championed her work, securing funding for the training center and cheering her speeches. Their evenings were spent planning, laughing, or watching. Ethan draw, a family forming in the spaces between. Yet Maya held back, her heart cautious after Henry's betrayal. James sensed it, never pushing but offering steady presence, cooking dinner when she was exhausted, leaving notes that read, "You're unstoppable." One night as they sat on Hope Haven's playground bench, the stars bright above, he took her hand. "Maya, I see all of you, the fighter, the mother, the woman who's scared to trust again. I'm here no matter what." His words, soft but sure, cracked her defenses. She squeezed his hand, not ready to say, "I love you," but ready to let him closer. The training center's opening was a milestone. On a crisp November day, Maya cut the ribbon, her navy dress hugging her frame, Ethan and James by her side. Women filled the space, their faces a mix of hope and fear. Maya spoke, her voice steady. "This is your second chance. You're not alone anymore." One woman, tears streaming, hugged her, whispering, "You saved me." Maya shook her head. "You're saving yourself." The moment crystallized her purpose. She wasn't just helping others. She was reclaiming her power, proving to the world and herself that she was enough. Yet challenges persisted. Funding for Empower Haven was tight, requiring Maya to pitch to donors, her nerves fraying under the pressure. At home, the Peachtree Lane house was gone, foreclosed years ago, and she and Ethan lived in a modest apartment near Hope Haven. Money was scarce, her salary stretched thin, but she refused to let it dim her vision. Ethan's school reported his talent, recommending art classes she struggled to afford. A pang of guilt she buried. She confided in James one evening, her voice low. "I want to give him everything, but sometimes I feel like I'm failing." James cupped her face, his eyes fierce. "You're giving him you, Maya. That's more than enough." His faith steadied her, a reminder that her worth wasn't tied to wealth. As winter loomed, Maya's influence grew. She mentored women at the training center, teaching them skills and self-belief. One, a mother named Keisha, landed a job after Maya coached her through interviews, her gratitude a mirror to Maya's journey. Community leaders invited her to speak, her story reshaping how Atlanta saw single mothers. Neighbors who'd once scorned her now sought her advice, their apologies unspoken but clear. Maya forgave, not for them but for herself, releasing the last tethers of shame. One evening, as she tucked Ethan into bed, his mural sketches scattered around, he asked, "Mom, are you happy?" The question caught her off guard, his young wisdom piercing. She smoothed his hair, her heart full. "Happier than I've ever been, baby. Because of you. Because of us." Ethan smiled, drifting to sleep, and Maya lingered, watching his chest rise and fall. Outside, Atlanta's skyline glowed, a city she'd helped heal. She thought of Henry, a fleeting shadow, and felt only gratitude for the pain that shaped her, for the strength she'd found, for the life she'd built. Maya was no longer the woman he'd broken. She was a creator, a mother, a leader, her self reclaimed, ready to soar. The winter of 2035 draped Atlanta in a soft chill, its skyline twinkling against the December dusk. At Hope Haven Orphanage, a gala glowed under a canopy of fairy lights, celebrating Empower Haven's 10th anniversary. Maya Jackson, now 42, stood at the heart of it all, a vision in a deep emerald gown that shimmered with every step. Her braids cascaded in an elegant twist, her deep brown eyes radiant with a hard-won peace. 10 years ago, Henry Caldwell's betrayal had left her shattered, pregnant, penniless, and scorned. Now she was a beacon of resilience, her initiative transforming lives across the nation. With her son, Ethan, and her partner, James Thornton, by her side, Maya had built a legacy of love and change. Yet tonight, the past would make one final bid to reclaim her, testing the freedom she'd fought so fiercely to own. The gala buzzed with energy, Hope Haven's courtyard packed with donors, community leaders, and women whose lives Maya had touched. Ethan, 10 and lanky, darted through the crowd, his hazel eyes bright as he showed off his latest mural, a phoenix rising painted for the job training center. James, tall and steady in a tailored suit, worked the room, securing pledges for Empower Haven's expansion. Maya's speech, delivered under a starlit sky, was a call to action. "We are not defined by what breaks us," she said, her voice clear and commanding. "We are defined by what we build." Together we've built hope and we're just getting started. The applause was thunderous, a testament to her impact, but Maya's heart swelled most for the women in the crowd, their faces alight with possibility. As she stepped off the stage, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows, his presence a jolt from the past. Henry Caldwell, now 46, stood at the gala's edge, his face gaunt, his once charming smile replaced by a nervous tic. His suit was cheap, his eyes haunted by a decade of regrets. Maya froze, her breath catching as memories flashed. What do you? I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. The stolen savings, the debts, the son he'd never known. His return months ago at Hope Haven had been a test she'd passed, sending him away with a resolve forged in fire. Now, here he was again, a ghost she thought she'd banished. Maya, Henry said, his voice rough, stepping closer as guests mingled unaware. I had to come. I've been following your work. You're incredible. His words, meant as praise, grated like sandpaper. Maya's spine straightened, her gaze steel. What do you want, Henry? She asked, her tone low, cutting through. The gala's hum. He flinched, hands fidgeting. I'm sorry, Maya, for everything. I was a coward. I want to make it right. For you, for Ethan. Please, let me try. The mention of Ethan, her son, ignited a protective fury. Maya glanced across the courtyard, where Ethan laughed with Lila, oblivious to the man who'd fathered him. You don't get to say his name, she said, her voice a quiet blade. You left us with nothing. I built this life without you. And Ethan doesn't need a father who only shows up when it suits him. Henry's eyes welled, his desperation raw. I've changed, Maya. I've lost everything, Claire, my career, my pride. I know I don't deserve you, but I'm begging for a chance. For a moment, Maya saw the man she'd loved, the one who'd promised her the world under Savannah's stars. But that man was a mirage, and the real Henry had chosen betrayal over their vows. She felt no anger, only clarity. I forgive you, Henry, she said, her voice steady, surprising them. Not for you, but for me. I don't carry your weight anymore. But you're not part of our lives, you never will be. Her words were a door slamming shut, final and unyielding. Henry's shoulders sagged, his face crumpling as he nodded, turning away into the night, a shadow swallowed by Atlanta's sprawl. Maya exhaled, the encounter leaving her shaken but unbroken. James appeared at her side, his presence a quiet anchor. You okay? He asked, his brown eyes searching hers. She nodded, squeezing his hand, grateful for his unspoken support. The gala continued, music swirling, but Maya's heart was elsewhere, drawn to Ethan, to the future she'd built from ashes. She found him by his mural, sketching in a notebook, and knelt beside him. What's this one? She asked, her smile soft. A rocket ship, he said, grinning. For you, Mom, because you're going to the stars. Her throat tightened and she hugged him, his warmth her greatest treasure. Later, under the Phoenix mural, James led Maya to a quiet corner, the fairy lights casting a golden glow. He took her hands, his voice low, earnest. Maya, you've built something extraordinary. Empower Haven, Ethan, and us. I want to build more with you forever. He knelt, a small velvet box in his hand, a diamond ring glinting. Will you marry me? Maya's breath caught, her heart a kaleidoscope of joy and fear. Henry's ghost had tested her, but James's love had proven itself in every quiet moment, every shared dream. Yes, she whispered, tears falling as he slid the ring onto her finger. They kissed, the crowd's cheers fading into a world that was theirs alone. The gala's final act was Maya's closing speech, her voice now infused with a new certainty. Empower Haven isn't just a program, she said, Ethan and James beside her. It's a promise that no woman, no child is alone in their, fight. Your pain is not your end, it's your beginning. The crowd rose, their ovation a wave of love. Maya looked at Ethan, his grin wide, and James, his hand in hers, and felt a freedom she'd never known. She was no longer the woman Henry had broken, nor the mother who'd struggled alone. She was Maya Jackson, creator, leader, and loved. As the gala ended, Maya stood with her family watching guests depart under Atlanta's starry sky. Ethan's mural glowed, a phoenix soaring, a mirror to her journey. Empower Haven would grow, touching thousands more. But tonight, Maya celebrated the life she'd claimed, her son, her love, her purpose. She thought of the women she'd helped, like Keisha, now a manager, and Lila, whose stories filled Hope Haven's shelves. Her legacy was theirs, too, a tapestry of resilience woven from shared strength. Driving home, Ethan asleep in the back seat, Maya leaned against James, her ring, catching the moonlight. "We're gonna be okay," she said, her voice soft but sure. He kissed her forehead, his smile a promise. Better than okay. In that moment, Maya knew she was free, not just from Henry, but from the doubts that had once bound her. Her future stretched wide, a canvas of hope, ready for her to paint with love, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of a woman who'd risen to the stars. Thank you for joining us on Maya Jackson's incredible journey of resilience, love, and triumph. Her story reminds us that from our deepest pain, we can build something extraordinary. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What moved you? What inspired you? Share your reflections in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation alive. Your voice matters, just as Maya's did. Until next time, thank you for being part of our storytelling family, and we can't wait to share another heartfelt tale with you soon.